The Mysore Palace.
Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi takes part in Quad Summit in Delaware, United States. Talks of establishing rules-based international order. India's Prime Minister Modi holds talks with President Joe Biden of the US on advancing the India-US Comprehensive Global Strategic Partnership. Sri Lanka presidential election concludes peacefully. Counting of votes underway. Nationwide curfew imposed until 6 in the morning. Tens of thousands of people told to evacuate a quake-hit Japanese region of Ishikawa as unprecedented rains trigger floods and landslides. And in cricket, Bangladesh falters in a mammoth 515-run chase. India in complete control of the Chepauk test. The leaders of the Quad nations, India, the United States, Japan and Australia, met in the US state of Delaware for the sixth time. The Quad continues to focus on concrete benefits and practical cooperation for the Indo-Pacific region. Key challenges confronting the international community in aspects related to development, peace, security that remains on agenda. The Quad leaders, Prime Minister Narendra Modi, US President Joe Biden, Australia's Prime Minister Anthony Albanese and Japan's Prime Minister Kishida Fumio posed for a photograph ahead of the Quad meeting. Prime Minister Modi in his opening statement said that the Quad is working together on the basis of shared democratic values for the entire humanity.
समय हो रही है जब विश्व तनावों और संघर्षों से घिरा हुआ है। ऐसे में साझा डेमोक्रेटिक वैल्यूज के आधार पर क्वाड का मिलकर साथ चलना पूरी मानवता के लिए बहुत ही महत्वपूर्ण है। हम किसी के खिलाफ नहीं हैं। हम सभी एक रूल्स बेस्ड इंटरनेशनल ऑर्डर, संप्रभुता और क्षेत्रीय अखंडता के सम्मान और सभी मसलों के शांतिपूर्ण ढंग से हल निकालने का समर्थन करते हैं.
Prime Minister Modi also said that Indo-Pacific is shared priority and shared commitment of the Quad leaders. He also thanked President Biden for expanding cooperation in an unprecedented way in every direction. All right, and when asked whether the Quad will survive beyond November, President Biden gestured shows who will drive the Quad forward. Right, these are the latest visuals from the Quad summit. When asked whether the Quad will survive beyond November, US President Biden gesture shows who will drive the Quad forward by placing his hand on Prime Minister Modi's shoulder. Prime Minister Modi also said that the Indo-Pacific is a shared priority and shared commitment of the Quad leaders. He thanked President Biden for expanding cooperation in an unprecedented way in every direction.
Free, open, inclusive और prosperous Indo-Pacific हमारी साझा प्राथमिकता और साझा प्रतिबद्धता है। हमने मिलकर हेल्थ सिक्योरिटी, क्रिटिकल एंड इमर्जिंग टेक्नोलॉजीज, क्लाइमेट चेंज, कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग जैसे क्षेत्रों में कई सकारात्मक और समावेशी इनिशिएटिव लिए हैं। हमारा मैसेज साफ है, क्वाड is here to stay, to assist, to partner and to complement.
Addressing the Quad Summit, U.S. President Joe Biden announced a new initiative for Indo-Pacific. He said that as democracies, Quad nations hold importance in building the future.
Today, we're announcing a series of initiatives to deliver real, positive impact for the Indo-Pacific that includes providing new maritime technologies to our regional partners so they know what's happening in their waters, launching cooperation between coast guards for the first time, and expanding the Quad Fellowship to include students from Southeast Asia.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden, on the sidelines of the Quad Summit in Delaware. In a special gesture, President Biden hosted the meeting at his home in Wilmington. The Prime Minister conveyed his appreciation for the unparalleled contributions made by President Biden in giving impetus to the India-US partnership. Prime Minister Modi warmly recalled his state visit to the United States in June 2023 and President Biden's visit to India in September 2023 for the G20 Leaders Summit. The Prime Minister noted that the visits have imparted greater dynamism and depth to the India-US partnership. The Prime Minister emphasized that India and the US today enjoy a comprehensive global strategic partnership that covers all areas of human endeavor, driven by shared democratic values, convergence of interests and vibrant people-to-people ties. The two leaders discussed ways to further enhance bilateral cooperation in areas of mutual interest and exchange views on global and regional issues, including the Indo-Pacific region and beyond. They expressed confidence in the strength and continuing resilience of the relationship and their belief in its significance for all areas of human endeavor between the two countries. And U.S. President Joe Biden shared photographs of his meeting with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi on X. In a social media post, Biden wrote that the U.S. partnership with India is stronger, closer and more dynamic than any time in history. Biden got very emotional, telling Prime Minister Modi that each time they sit down, he is struck by the ability to find new areas of cooperation and that today was no different. India's Prime Minister Modi shared photographs of the meeting with Biden in his social media post, where he thanked Biden for hosting him at his residence in Greenville, Delaware. He termed the talks as extremely fruitful as both leaders had an opportunity to discuss regional and global issues during the meeting. And earlier, the Indian diaspora gave Prime Minister Modi a grand welcome at the Hotel du Pont in downtown Wilmington. The atmosphere was electric as people from various U.S. cities came together, waving flags and chanting in unison. As the Prime Minister stepped into the opulent hotel lobby, he was greeted with enthusiastic cheers and warm smiles. The Indian community had organized a colorful cultural program showcasing dances and music that highlighted the rich heritage of India. The Prime Minister engaged with them, listening to their stories and aspirations. The diaspora expressed its gratitude for the Prime Minister's efforts to strengthen the ties between India and the US. The evening was filled with laughter, song and dance as Prime Minister Modi enjoyed the performances that reflected the diverse traditions of India, from classical dance to contemporary fusion. It was a moment of celebration and connection, bridging cultures and reaffirming the strong bonds of the Indian diaspora in the US. Upon his arrival at the Philadelphia airport, Prime Minister Narendra Modi received a warm welcome by the Indian diaspora. DD India's Amritpal Singh spoke to members of the diaspora.
As Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrived in the US for a 3-day visit, his first stop was Wilmington in Delaware. I'm right now in Wilmington. He was, received by the Indian community with a lot of enthusiasm. I have members of the Indian community. Sir, what is the sort of excitement amongst the Indian diaspora here on arrival of Prime Minister?
Oh, this is an unbelievable event for us in Delaware, and all of us are truly experiencing a very magical event, something that was unthinkable several years ago. Thanks to President Biden for inviting Modi ji to Delaware, which is a very small state. However, does hold a lot of sway because of Biden's presidency. So thanks to that presidency for having us experience this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, which I didn't think will ever happen. So truly a magical day for all of the Indians in Delaware and all of the Indian diaspora here in Delaware.
Okay. How have things changed? You know, we've seen for the Indian diaspora when you've been in the US, living in the US for a long time. Do you, as in part of the diaspora, have things changed for you?
Things have changed a lot. So I think 25 years ago, India was not really on the map. Not many people knew about where this country is and whatever, you know. But now, with the growing population of Indians in the US, I think people are getting noticed, and they are kind of, we get to interact and socialize a lot more with the local communities over here.
And I think Modi ji has brought India to the forefront. He has showed that India is the best in terms of technology, healthcare, you name it. Yep. And he has put India on the map, and that makes all of us very important here. And it makes us feel very proud that India is again back on the forefront.
As Madam was saying that, he's put India on the world map. Indians were always very hardworking people, both either in the technology sector or even blue-collared workers. But with the rising stature of the country, do you think that directly affects how the world sees you, the Indian diaspora?
Yes, definitely. You know, India has elevated all of us, even though we are not Indians outside living in the country, we are elevated to the highest level. And we see that we are witnessing the golden age of India that we thought we read in history books during Gupta dynasty. Now it's happening again during Modi's administration, and we are very, very happy, excited, thankful that this is happening during our lifetime.
So you can see the sort of excitement and enthusiasm in the Indian diaspora here. The Prime Minister, though, interacted very briefly with them as he begins his official program, bilateral meetings with President Biden, with Prime Minister Fumio Kishida and Anthony Albanese, and after that the Quad Leaders Summit. But the interaction with the Indian community and the diaspora does leave them with a sense of ownership as the Prime Minister adds a personal touch. With cameraman Praveen Johar, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India in Wilmington, Delaware.
Still to come on DD India News Hour. India's Prime Minister to address the Summit of the Future at the United Nations on 23rd September. India sends humanitarian aid to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And US citizens begin casting their first in-person votes for the presidential election. watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Prime Minister Modi will address the Summit of the Future at the United Nations on 23rd September. DD India's Amritpal Singh reports from the UN headquarters.
The apex global body, which has often been criticized for failing humanity to address its current problems. The UN is now staging a summit of the future, which has an ambitious agenda to find solutions to the emerging problems, the solutions to problems which may affect humanity in the near future, to evolve a global consensus, a pact for future which solves humanity's problems. Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing world leaders on Monday at the Summit of the Future, making a strong case for keeping international commitments on sustainable development, financing for the developing countries, and transforming the global governance architecture to make it more effective and equitable. But the big question is, will world leaders be able to keep their differences aside and find solutions to the problems of the world? But despite the cynicism, it is a welcome step by the UN because, as the Mahatma once said, the future depends on what you do today. With cameraman Sumit Nodial, this is Amritpal Singh for DD India at the UN headquarters in New York.
And DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh visits the New York University campus to find out what young people expect from the summit and what they feel about emerging technologies.
Summit of the Future is taking place at the United Nations in New York. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi will be addressing this summit. I have with me what looks like a bright future. Well, I'm talking about young students, Indian and American, at the prestigious New York University. And this red building that you see behind us, this imposing structure, is the Bob's Library, an iconic structure that is center of the academic and intellectual life of the students here. I have with me Alvina and her friends who are here to talk with us. Alvina, first, not very far from here at the United Nations headquarters, Summit of the Future is going to be deliberating on sustainable tomorrow. What are your thoughts on what this summit is going to be deliberating on, and what kind of action-oriented agenda would you like to see?
I would say, obviously, we, the millennials or the Gen Z, are really looking forward to leave a better planet for our next generations. And what we would hope is, obviously, all the global leaders and all the stakeholders to take some actionable insights to make sure that we are moving towards a more sustainable future for us.
In response to your question, I think the summit does bring a lot of hope for the future. In the past, a lot of summits that have occurred, I feel like, have not really achieved the goals that they have set. I'm hoping that this will be more action-driven and really will solve all the problems that they have identified in previous summits.
All right.
Hi, I think the summit is mainly focusing on tackling the environmental issues, which is actually the need of the hour, because India has been progressing in every other domain, especially under the current government.
All right. Another aspect of the Summit of the Future is the manner in which new emerging technologies are going to be looked at, are going to be adapted by different nations. AI is something that has been making a lot of buzz around the world.
As you talked about AI, so AI is one of the fastest growing technologies right now. And with the growth of AI, the growth of semiconductor industries has been massive. And with the recent success of the Semicon meeting in India, where everyone around the world came to India to promote the semiconductor industry and lead to the growth of AI, I'm pretty hopeful about it.
As an AI architect myself, I've seen that AI plays a really big role in a lot of industries, healthcare, any type of engineering, healthcare, AI plays a big role. So, as the name suggests, Summit of the Future, and it gives us a glimpse of the future.
I strongly feel that technological advancement is a is a value that is shared by both India and the United States. And Prime Minister in his speeches also mentions about sustainable development, technological advancement, and talks about Viksit Bharat.
All right, these were young, bright students, Indian and American, at the New York University, talking about the summit of the future and the potential of India-United States ties. With camera person Sumit Nodiyal, Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
And joining me from Wilmington in the U.S. state of Delaware is my colleague Amritpal Singh. Amrit, talk to us about the Quad Summit. How did those talks go and what were the key highlights from that summit?
Okay, the Quad Summit is currently on, Ramesh, even as we speak. The four leaders are right now in the summit. It is expected to last a little more. It's over 2 hours. That's what we know about the summit. Now, at this summit, essentially they'll be looking at reviewing where Quad has come in the past 1 year since the last summit. Take stock of that, work out a roadmap for what they want to achieve over the next year, and in diverse areas, and also expand the scope and the ambit of Quad as an organization or as a grouping, and define where they want to take it. From an Indian standpoint, India would want the grouping to emerge to provide solutions to the problems faced by the countries in the region, be it on peace and security, a stable Indo-Pacific, free from any unilateralism by any particular country, ensuring that it's an inclusive zone, there is a free and open trade and security of the important trade routes, especially the sea lanes that pass through it. Look at how the developmental goals and aspirations of the countries in the region are taken care of, not just of the four Quad members, but the other countries who may not be part of the Quad but are a part of the Indo-Pacific cooperation, increasing cooperation in maritime domain awareness, in technology, in emerging technologies, in clean energy, climate change, disaster resilient infrastructure. So essentially seeing that how the grouping can come and be a group, you leverage its strengths and be a grouping which brings more prosperity to the region and provides solutions to the problems faced by the countries of the region. Ramesh?
And also talk to us a bit, if you will, Amrit, about the Modi-Biden bilateral. How did that go?
Well, the Modi Biden bilateral lasted over an hour at the ancestral residence or the personal home of President Biden, where he had invited Prime Minister Modi to host him for the bilateral meeting. They, of course, reviewed the entire gamut of relationship. It is a comprehensive strategic partnership, so it has a defense angle to it. It has, of course, trade and investment. Is an important component of the relationship, and cooperation in areas in emerging technologies, and looking at, and they also spoke about the global conflicts that are currently afflicting the world, be it the Ukraine-Russia conflict or the Gaza-Israel conflict. It's and its escalating nature in the region. So how India and US exchanged views on how steps can be taken to contain that and stop its further spread or a spillover into the region. So this is what figured in the talks between the two leaders. Ramesh?
Now, Amrit, you spent the last few days in Wilmington in particular. What can you tell us about the Indian diaspora there, the Indian American community, and how they welcomed Prime Minister upon his arrival there?
Delaware is a small state here, and the Indian community here, though in Delaware, in Wilmington, is pretty small. I mean, you find most of the Indian community on either on the East Coast or the West Coast, or even in places, manufacturing hubs like Houston, etc. But there is still a presence of the Indian community here, and we saw the Indian community, greet the Prime Minister. They had gathered in numbers above there, about more than 100 people who had gathered both at the Philadelphia airport where the Prime Minister landed this morning, and also at the hotel. You saw the visuals play out. I had spoken to a few of them. There were Garba dance performances. So the Prime Minister makes it a point to, reach out to the Indian community, to the Indian diaspora, so that, there is a personalized message or a personal touch where they can see the Prime Minister in person, see him from close quarters. That, of course, builds a sense of belongingness in the diaspora. There is understandable excitement to see the Prime Minister up close rather than seeing him on television. So all that happened this morning. From here in the evening, the Prime Minister moves to New York, where he'll be addressing a larger group of the Indian community at a function called Modi and the US. That function, of course, will be the presence of the diaspora would be in larger numbers. But the Prime Minister chooses to interact with them. The reason, of course, one is, as I said, to give them a sense of belonging. But from the other, or the more substantive part of it, is leveraging the strengths of the Indian diaspora, especially in the US. If you look, there are about 4.4 million strong Indian diaspora in various sectors. They are in there are Indian doctors, there are Indian technologists, engineers, and many of them have risen to very top positions of global companies, as we know. There are blue-collared workers as well. Every third cabbie that you see in New York is from Punjab. Every fourth motel that you see is owned by a Gujarati. Most doctors are from India, and they're pretty well respected. They are considered to be very competent doctors. Indian, as I said, Indian engineers, especially the software engineers. So using the leverage of this diaspora,
Right.
because many of them may have been living for more than 2-3 generations, and they are steeped into the American society and play an important role there. And many of them now have become big businessmen and would like to invest in India because they have some kind of an emotional attachment. So the idea is to use that to see that as India grows, they can be part of the Indian growth story, and the diaspora or the Indian community, even if they are Americans today, Indo-Americans, use their talent resource, their financial capital to see that both India and the diaspora can sort of progress further and be in a mutually beneficial relationship. Ramesh?
All right, we leave it there. Amrit, thank you. Amrit Pal Singh reporting there from Wilmington in the US state of Delaware. In other news, a mega Indian diaspora event is being organized near New York City to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Some 15,000 Indian Americans from across the US are expected to reach Nassau County for the event. DD India's Shubhendu Ghosh has more.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi is visiting United States. Besides the strategic and diplomatic engagements at the Quad Summit and at United Nations, there is great anticipation around Prime Minister's connection with the Indian diaspora. In fact, I'm standing right now in front of this mega stadium, which is the Nassau Coliseum. This is going to be the venue for this very special diaspora program that Prime Minister would be engaging in. I have with me two members from the organizing committee of this mega program, Jagdish and Suhag. Jagdish, from you, I'd like to learn, what are the arrangements made? How are you planning to make this event a memorable one?
Well, it's going to be a memorable event. Just imagine the Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to address New York after 10 years. After Madison Square Garden, this is the first time. We have been after Narendra Modi ji to come and address us, but because of his busy schedule, he couldn't do. Thank God, finally he has agreed. And just imagine, day after tomorrow, 15,000 strong New Yorkers plus people coming from 40 states of America. 500 organizations, 500 cultural program artists coming together for this mega event at this mega stadium to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Nassau County. And this is the first time ever any Prime Minister has come to Nassau County. So I was talking to the Nassau County executive, that is mayor of Nassau County. He said, Jagdish, I'm so excited. 2 months back, I hosted a cricket team, and now I'm hosting your prime minister, who is not only a popular leader of Bharat, but he's a global leader.
Right. Sohag, from you, I'd like to learn about the name of this mega program. I understand it is called Modi and US, but one can also read it as Modi and us. Interesting play of words. How do you see it?
I think it's really up to whoever is saying it. You can say India and US and India and us, but it really means the same thing. It's about our connection with India. And it's about the Indian American diaspora being ambassadors of a cultural ethos of unity and diversity. And it's such a nice blending of cultures, because to be Indian is to be pluralistic, to be American is to be pluralistic. And that's why the US-India friendship is a natural one. And that's why Indian Americans are also a natural fit to their adopted country, the United States.
Right. I understand that almost a mini India is going to be created here in terms of the cultural performances, special presentations that are going to be here when the Prime Minister arrives at the stadium. Jagdish, take us through the special programs that you've lined up for Prime Minister when he's here.
Well, like I told you, 500 artists are going to perform here, and you will see a mini Bharat here. In Nassau County, in America, you'll see a mini Bharat from, participating, performing Indian arts to Bollywood, patriotic song, you can say on and on. I think Sohagji can take a little more about the cultural program, what we have lined up.
Absolutely. Well, what's really wonderful about this program is that not only did it garner a tremendous response, so many internationally and nationally known artists who came forward to volunteer for the program. We have classical, folk, funky, you name it. We have every genre possible. We have north, south, east, west, and everything in between in terms of India. All of those cultures represented. So the theme of unity and diversity, it is through and through. We see it from the people that are coming, the audience, the participants, to the programming, to the volunteers. We are unity and diversity.
All right. On that note, finally, the kind of role that Indian America diaspora is playing in bringing the two great democracies and societies closer. How do you reflect on that thought through this event as well?
Well, I'll tell you, America being the oldest democracy and India being the largest democracy, we are natural partners. And I believe Indian American diaspora plays very important role in this. I call it people-to-people relation. The role Indian American have played for bilateral relation is amazing. Today you see we have congressman, governor of the state, and today if you see even Kamala Harris, who's half Indian, is contesting as a president of the United States. That shows how important Indian diaspora is in USA. We are very politically savvy, and hopefully in next few years you'll see Indian American as the president of United States.
All right, on that hopeful note, thank you very much for speaking with DD India. So the stage is all set for the mega diaspora event when Prime Minister Narendra Modi reaches United States here in New York at Long Island. Nassau Coliseum is all ready to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi and the Indian diaspora. With camera person Sumit Shubhendu Ghosh for DD India in New York.
And Shubhendu Ghosh joins us from New York City. Shubhendu, tell us more about the mega event that's been planned for welcoming Prime Minister Modi in Nassau County.
Absolutely. It comes after almost a decade. Many of the Indian Americans say here they remember the Madison Square presence of Prime Minister and the address and the electrifying atmosphere that was created. And they anticipate something similar is going to be created at the Nassau County Coliseum. Some 15,000, as we also mentioned in the story, Indian Americans are coming from all over United States. What I learned was from across at least 40 states. Some Indian Americans are coming from different states. So, and they're coming from different backgrounds, business people, technicians, students, families who've stayed here for generations. So in that sense, a little India is going to be created. Indians from different states go to the US, and now all of them are gathering here to welcome Prime Minister Narendra Modi. It's a lot of excitement. There is also a lot of planning to present what India represents in terms of songs, culture, and strength. All those elements would be on display. There was a fantastic welcome given to Prime Minister as he landed in Philadelphia. But many Indian Americans in New York say, well, that was just a trailer. The real film will play out tomorrow in the morning when the Indian diaspora, a huge number and an electrifying atmosphere, all ready to welcome Prime Minister at the Nassau Coliseum in New York.
Indeed, and another event to be looked forward to would be his interaction with business leaders in New York City, Shubhendu. Semiconductors, artificial intelligence, trade, investment, FDI, quantum computing, all will be on the agenda.
Absolutely, hugely important. While the focus of this visit has been on three broad pillars. There's a Quad, there is a community event, and of course, the Summit of the Future. But the real backbone of India-United States relations is also a thriving economic partnership that the two countries enjoy. And as you mentioned, these critical and advanced technologies are now the focus of global economy. And so they are of India-United States ties and engagement as well. CEOs from top companies, particularly from these areas of advanced technology, are going to be gathering in New York for a roundtable with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. We know that Prime Minister had laid his agenda very clear about the manner in which India seeks to make advancements in the domain of semiconductors. So those engagements, and remember, America, United States, the 40% of the global semiconductor market is here in the United States. The many Indian Americans also work in this domain. They're leaders in this domain. So the platform for engagement is all set. It is expected that when Prime Minister engages with these leaders, these countries, the economies are going to come closer. They already are very important trading partners. The trading volume is about $190 billion. This was 2023. America is the leading FDI source for India. India has also made significant investments in America. In fact, in the last financial year, some 400,000 jobs was the latest number of jobs that have been created by Indian entrepreneurs in America. So it is a relationship which has great synergy. It is a relationship that is all poised to move forward, especially in this a domain which is still emerging of critical and newer technology. And the leaders from India and the United States are looking forward to sitting alongside Prime Minister to really iron out the vision ahead for the partnership between India and the US in this domain.
And before we let you go, Shubhendu, talk to us a bit, if you will, also about the Summit of the Future at the UN headquarters that the Prime Minister will address. What's on its agenda and what can we expect from the Prime Minister's address to the summit?
This summit is coming at a very, very important time, Ramesh, whether we see the debilitating impact of climate change all around us, whether we see conflicts, regional conflicts such as Ukraine and Gaza, which refuse to die down. There is no effective movement towards resolution or ceasefire, and they have a cascading impact on the rest of the world, especially countries of the global south that are impacted by these conflict and climate changes. Sustainable development goals, the ones that the international community was supposed to achieve by 2030, we are far from that. So collectively, the international community, the world, has not lived up to its promises of sustainable development. India is one of the many exceptional countries which has, in fact, not only achieved many of its goals, whether we talk about renewable energy targets, and in fact has done more. So it is an important point in time for world leaders, for India to also, together with everyone else, see what kind of course correction is required, reflect on why many of the goals have not been met. Has the developed world fulfilled its commitment towards global south? And in that sense, we've seen Prime Minister Narendra Modi raising the concern of the global south as if raising the concern of his own nation, as of the entire community. So I think that stance we're likely to see once again in a very strong manner. In previous engagements with global south countries, Prime Minister had flagged that this summit, Summit of the Future, is going to be very significant to put across our concerns and thoughts. And as Prime Minister, on the final day of his US visit, addresses the United Nations Summit of the Future, it will be interesting, the kind of way forward that India presents to the world.
Shubhendu, thank you. Appreciate it. Shubhendu Ghosh reporting there from New York City. Moving on, U.S. citizens began casting their first in-person votes on Friday in a presidential election less than 7 weeks away. The Democratic Party supporters in the Midwestern state of Minnesota were out early to make sure that their voice was counted. Voters in Minnesota, South Dakota and Virginia can now go to the polls in person, while Minnesota and South Dakota voters can also mail in their ballots. Minnesota is the home state of Democratic vice presidential candidate Tim Walz. Record rains in Japan's Noto region killed at least one person on Saturday and prompted evacuation orders for tens of thousands. The rains caused blackouts for more than 6,000 households. 7 people, including 4 working on earthquake reconstruction, went missing. Calls for rescue swamped the fire department. Hourly rainfall hit record 12.1 centimeters on Saturday morning local time in Wajima, while neighboring Suzu received 8.45 centimeters in an hour, which is also an all-time high. The visuals showed brown floodwater turning streets into rivers in Wajima with cars half submerged. The 7.6 magnitude quake killed more than 300 people in Suzu, Wajima and its surrounding areas. In the aftermath of Hurricane Beryl, India on Saturday dispatched the first tranche of humanitarian aid to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for rehabilitation of settlements in that country. The 10-ton aid was sent on Saturday. It consists of sleeping bags and hygiene products. India's Ministry of External Affairs said that the second tranche of items worth 60 tons will be dispatched via sea. Sri Lanka's presidential election concluded peacefully. 70 to 80% voters exercised their franchise. The counting of votes is underway. Final results will be declared on Sunday.
Millions of Sri Lankans cast their votes on Saturday in the crucial presidential election, the island nation's first major electoral exercise since its worst economic meltdown in 2022. Voting remained largely peaceful, with stray incidents of poll violations. Counting of votes began on Saturday evening, with postal ballots being counted first. Sri Lanka's Election Commission has said final result will be announced on Sunday. According to analysts, the 2024 presidential race is the most keenly contested of all presidential elections since 1982. The election saw more than 13,000 polling stations being set up and over 250,000 public officials being deployed to manage the election. More than 70 million of Sri Lanka's 22 million people were eligible to vote in the election, contested by 38 candidates. In a largely three-cornered fight, Ranil Wickremesinghe, Anura Kumara Dissanayake and Sajith Premadasa have campaigned primarily on the issue of economic stability, while the issue of corruption has also figured during the campaign. President Wickremesinghe claims credit for putting the country on the road to recovery.
It's a turning point for Sri Lanka to get away from the conventional politics which destroyed the country and the conventional economy which destroyed the country, and a new social system and a political system.
Premadasa is a frontrunner in the polls, and a win will hand him the top job more than 30 years after his father was assassinated while holding the same post.
All I can say is democracy will be victorious, and for everyone to be very calm and collected and promote and champion democracy.
This is the first election since Sri Lanka's economy buckled in 2022 under a severe foreign exchange crisis, leaving the Indian Ocean island nation unable to pay for imports of essentials including fuel, medicine and cooking gas. Sri Lankan presidential elections follow a preferential voting system in which a voter can mark up to 3 choices. A candidate needs to poll over 50% of valid votes to be declared winner. Else, the second preference votes have to be counted. Dr. Ahmed Moin Faruqi's report, Colombo, DD India.
The Sri Lankan government imposed an island-wide curfew from Saturday till Sunday morning, hours after polls closed in the country's presidential election. Employees in essential services, travelers to and from the airport, and personnel engaged in election duties will be exempt as long as they provide authorized documents or travel proof. Security officials were seen patrolling the streets and setting up checkposts on Colombo high streets. Israel's Defense Minister Yoav Gallant carried out a situation assessment on Saturday alongside military chief Herzi Halevi and other senior defense officials after gathering its restrictions on residents of areas in northern Israel were imposed. The situation assessment came ahead of anticipated retaliation for an Israeli strike on Hezbollah commanders in Lebanon on Friday. The United Nations Security Council met on Friday over the pager blasts in Lebanon that targeted the Hezbollah. It denounced the detonation of handheld communication devices used by Hezbollah operatives in Lebanon, saying that the attack violated international law and could constitute a war crime. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Volker Turk asked for an investigation in the circumstances of the explosions. He said that international humanitarian law prohibits the use of booby-trap devices in the form of apparently harmless portable objects.
International humanitarian law prohibits the use of booby-trap devices in the form of apparently harmless portable objects which are specifically designed and constructed to contain explosive material. It is a war crime to commit violence intended to spread terror among civilians. I call again for an independent, thorough, and transparent investigation into the circumstances of these explosions. Those who ordered and carried out these attacks must be held to account.
Meanwhile, U.S. President Joe Biden expressed hope for a Gaza ceasefire, insisting that reaching a deal remains realistic. Addressing journalists on Friday, Biden emphasized the need for perseverance, saying, "We have to keep at it." He highlighted the importance of restoring peace along Israel's northern and Lebanon's southern borders.
We're continuing to try to do what we tried from the beginning to make sure that both the people in northern Israel as well as southern Lebanon are able to go back to their homes and go back safely. And the Secretary of State, the Secretary of Defense, our whole team is working in the intelligence community to try to get that done. We're going to keep at it till we get it done, but we've got a way to go.
Iran unveiled a new ballistic missile and an upgraded one-way attack drone at a military parade amid soaring regional tensions and allegations of arming Russia. Its new president, Masoud Pezeshkian, attended an annual parade in Tehran commemorating the 1980 to 1988 war with Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha said on Saturday that Russia is planning strikes on Ukrainian nuclear facilities before the winter. He urged the UN's nuclear watchdog and Ukraine's allies to establish permanent monitoring missions at the country's nuclear plants. Taking to social media platform X, the foreign minister said, and I quote, "According to Ukrainian intelligence, the Kremlin is preparing strikes on Ukrainian nuclear energy critical objects ahead of winter. In particular, it concerns open distribution devices at nuclear power plants and transmission substations critical for the safe operation of nuclear energy," unquote. There was no immediate comment from Moscow or the UN's nuclear watchdog, the International Atomic Energy Agency. Meanwhile, Ukrainian President's Chief of Staff called for a swift global response to the purported threat of a strike on a nuclear facility. All right, now take a look at what else is making news in India. India's Secretary for Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Leena Nandan, addressed an event titled Summit of the Future side event at the United Nations headquarters in New York City. She highlighted India's commitment to youth action on a global scale. India's Education and Health Ministries jointly issued an advisory to Chief Secretaries of States and Union Territories for effective implementation of tobacco-free educational institutions guidelines and manual with an aim to protect future generations by raising awareness of the harmful effects of tobacco. The closing ceremony of a joint military exercise codenamed Yudh Abhyas 24 between the Indian Army and the US Army was held at the Mahajan Field Firing Range in the western Indian state of Rajasthan. The exercise focused on counter-terrorism operations in semi-urban and semi-desert terrain under the United Nations mandate. The Indian Air Force's Cheetal helicopter showcased its air might in the rough terrain of Leh in Ladakh on Saturday. The Indian Army showcased its rescue and slithering operations in challenging conditions in the Union Territory. And now to news from the world of sport. Bangladesh needs 357 runs to win the first match of a test series against India at Chennai. At the end of day 3, Bangladesh was 158 for the loss of 4 wickets as early stumps was taken because of bad light. For Bangladesh, Najmul Hossain Shanto remained unbeaten on 51. For India, Ravi Chandran Ashwin continued his dream form following up on the first innings 100 with figures of 3 for 63. Earlier, Shubman Gill and Rishabh Pant's stuns helped India set a target of 515 runs, giving Bangladesh a huge mountain to climb to win the test. India declared at 287 for 4 on day 3. Pant scored 109 runs, while Gill slammed 119 runs. Returning to Test cricket after a gap of more than 600 days, India's Rishabh Pant scored his 6th Test 100 against Bangladesh in the first Test at the M.A. Chidambaram Stadium in Chennai. The 26-year-old equalled legendary Indian captain M.S. Dhoni's record for the most Test 100s by an Indian wicketkeeper.
Rishabh Pant made a triumphant return to Test cricket after 637 days, crafting a brilliant century to mark his comeback. Walking in during the 20th over of India's second innings, Pant faced a tense situation with India losing Virat Kohli for 17 and the top order faltering. Pant studied the innings, forming a crucial partnership with Shubman Gill. On day 2, he played cautiously, guiding India through a tricky phase. As day 3 began, Pant displayed patient approach, resisting his usual attacking instincts. In the opening hour, he focused on shoring up India's position, leaving risky shots behind in favour of solid defence. His half-century came off 88 balls and evidence of his newfound maturity and tactical awareness. Pant and Gill picked up the scoring pace after their 50s. The runs began to flow as Pant shifted from a defensive mindset to his more familiar attacking style. The duo capitalized on easier batting conditions, putting Bangladesh under further pressure. Pant reached his 6th Test century, equalling MS Dhoni's record for the most centuries by an Indian wicketkeeper, but in just 34 matches compared to Dhoni's 90. Pant's inning ended at 109 when he attempted to clear Mehdi Hassan's delivery but mistimed the shot, resulting in a return catch. Though his knock ended, Pant's measured approach and ability to adapt highlighted his evolution as a key player. His century not only steadied the Indian innings, but also reinforced his reputation as a game-changer player capable of delivering under pressure. Narayan Sikh's report for DD India.
To football now, Al Nasser eased past Al Ettifaq 3-0 in a Saudi Pro League match at the Ettifaq Club Stadium. The match started slow as neither team created any opportunity to score in the first quarter. But the game picked up pace soon as Cristiano Ronaldo scored through a penalty in the 33rd minute. Al Nasser continued to dominate the game in the second half with 2 goals thanks to Al Najdi and Talisca. This win takes Al Nasser to the 4th spot with 8 points, with Ettifaq stays at 3rd with 9 points from 4 games. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen now to download it. and let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.